Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi. It is a Wednesday morning. Sorry, I got a little bit of a late start this morning. And by the way, for those of you who are my regulars here, I just want to show you. There he is. He's back to normal. There's our little Kovu. And welcome you this morning. This is a little bit earlier than usual. I want to say a big hello to those of you who are watching from the UK, from Ireland, and from Wales, and Scotland, and England. Very, very excited about this. When we had Hurricane Ophelia, I did some special coverage, and I saw a number of you on the chat board. I was very, very flattered and very impressed. And I thought today that we'll do a little bit of we'll do weather for you guys, because you've got some very interesting weather going on. This is my cat, Kovu. He had diabetes, uncontrollable, and I mean, he was really out of control, but he's really gotten much better now, and he's back to normal. So I know a lot of you have been asking. Okay, so we're going to be taking a look at the weather models as soon as I can find. There we go. And my coffee has not kicked in yet, so just so bear that in mind. But we're going to take a look at the weather models here with regards to what's happening across your way on your side of the world, because I have to say right off the bat, I am learning all this. Everybody, weather people tend to pay attention to the weather where they live, and maybe in places not too far, but it's only really in recent years that we've gotten the tools to look at what's going on across your way. And we are going to pull up Europe as soon as I get this going here. And let's take a look at what's happening. I'm going to try and explain why it's happening as well. We're going to look at the GFS model, which is our North American model. And we can see all sorts of different parameters with this, including snowfall, rain versus snow, etc., etc. And we're going to start, I'll start at the present time. And here's the setup as of this morning, where you have high pressure sitting over France. You can see it here, and you're starting to see some wind coming in across the British Isles today, and also some rain into parts of Ireland and into northern Scotland. You have two low pressure centers, one that's not too far from Iceland, and another one that's developing a little bit further south by about 300 or 400 miles with this front that's approaching. Now, as we run through time, and if you look at the top of the map, you'll see the date and time, and that is, by the way, in Greenwich time. So this works out quite well. At least I don't have to be adding 5 hours or subtracting 5 hours when I'm doing it for the East. But we'll move this along. And you can see that low is very intense. It goes well to the north of Scotland. And once it does that and continues to intensify as it approaches Norway and Sweden, cold air is drawn down on the backside. Winds around lows are counterclockwise. So you've got northeast to north winds and then turning northwesterly. So that pulls down cold air from the Arctic region and from eastern Greenland. And you can see that the precipitation here by Thursday morning is forecast to change over to snow across much of northern Scotland. And by the way, notice these isobars, the lines of equal pressure, are very, very tight. And that defines the strength of the wind. So I would not be surprised to see some very, very strong wind gusts with this. And with snow falling, it'll probably result in some blizzard conditions, no doubt. In fact, if you look at, I'm just putting up the wind map here. Okay, this is the GFS forecast for winds. The red area on the scale are sustained winds. All the reds from lighter to darker, 36 to almost 50 knots. And you can see how extensive it is. And in fact, there's a belt of 52 knot sustained winds touching the north coast of Scotland. So there could certainly be every bit of gusts of 60 or 70 miles an hour with this. And you put on top of that, you put the issue of heavy snow, and you've got the ingredients for a pretty powerful blizzard up your way. This is a very strong storm that you're going to be dealing with. Back to the rain and snow map. As we move into the afternoon, you see snow, rain changes over to snow throughout much of Ireland, and that snow area expands southward into northern England as we move through the day on Thursday and into Friday. And you're getting these streamers too, these northwest. But at this point, the wind is northwest or northwest, so you're getting moisture being drawn in from off the ocean. And that streamer activity continues into Friday and Friday night. And you still have some of it happening early Saturday morning before it diminishes. And then another low begins its approach over the weekend, and that goes by to your south. You have low pressure that's going to be moving across southern Ireland and perhaps over to the south of southernmost England. So there may be some cold air that's trapped in southern England and Ireland with some snow being indicated. You can see that low drops southeastward into France. Now we're into Monday and Tuesday of next week. And at this point, we're starting to get, you'll get another wave of low pressure along about Tuesday, Wednesday. That goes into the North Sea and intensifies with some rain and some snow. I would think that at this point, perhaps, there might be a little bit less in the way of cold air, but there still may be enough, especially in areas where there's some elevation. So you have some very wintry weather to contend with. And as far as snow is concerned, now I'm going to put up the snowfall forecast map. And this is cumulative snow. And I understand, just like it is here where I am, where the snow amounts and snow forecasting is extremely difficult. And there's a lot of variables, and a lot of variation could certainly occur with snow from place to place. Elevation plays a role, or lack of elevation plays a role, the coast versus inland areas. So it's very, very hard, and it's certainly difficult to have a model where you can just look at and say, okay, you're going to get X amount of snow, and that's that you can bank on it. You really can't. But I think when we look at this as sort of in a general way, and what I've done is I've put the cumulative snowfall. This is cumulative snowfall out through next Thursday, but we'll go a little bit short term here and roll it along. But let's take a look. You can see the snow growth that occurs isn't all that, it's right up into Sunday. Now, I'm using a new version of this, by the way. It's called positive snow growth. It's supposed to account for melting and for sleet. So through Sunday night, you can see in the darkish purple area here, and also up and through northern Scotland, you've got a large area in southwestern England and in Wales where we're seeing snowfall amounts of 12 centimeters or more, and up into northern Scotland and Ireland, we're looking at the measures here probably down closer to the 6 to 10 centimeter range. I know some of the forecasters there are forecasting up to 20 centimeters. I really would say they know their area far better, your area far better than I do, so I wouldn't doubt it. There certainly is enough from the standpoint of rain. If we look at the melted precipitation from this, which I think might be a little bit more useful, it is, the rainfall and the liquid amounts are certainly in the range of through Monday in some areas running at 20, 25, 30 centimeters, maybe even more over the western half of England, while it's 15 centimeters or less in the eastern half. So, basically, you cut England and Scotland in half, and the heaviest rains are going to be on the west side and over Ireland as well. You can see the scale on the side here in centimeters going up to, you start to get to that little whitish shading here, and you're talking about 45 centimeters spread out over the next 5 days. So this is a very formidable system. And how this looks aloft, by the way, is a whole different matter. So we have to look at the jet stream pattern here, which is really driving all this. And of course, and you know, we've been under this blocking pattern here in the northeastern Atlantic. And what I mean by a blocking pattern is there's basically an upper high here, so that actually creates winds blow clockwise around high, so that actually creates an alleyway for cold air to come down from northeastern Greenland and up through the Arctic region. But that high, that blocking high, has broken down and shifted westward, and that's the reason why my neck of the woods now is about to turn colder. So there's that signature of the big storm. This is the upper air reflection of that big storm, but you can see where the upper air winds are, again, counterclockwise around lows. This is southern Greenland here. You're getting winds north-northwest from the upper atmosphere, so that comes straight down from the coldest regions of the northern hemisphere right into England and into Western Europe. And that deep trough just swings eastward. So now you have, you know, as we get into Friday and Saturday, you've got this almost straight flow that comes from the coldest regions down into England, Ireland, and France. And in fact, the bottom of this trough cuts off rather vigorously. So there's a strong reflection of this with a storm in the Adriatic. So other areas in Europe are going to see a considerable amount of snow as well. And here's the reflection of the system that swings in for Sunday and into early next week. So a very, very active pattern, and certainly one that continues to favor you to have colder than average temperatures. So when we look at the long term, I'm going to start from right now. What we're looking at here are average temperatures relative to normal, starting with today. And actually for today in England, you are above average. But as that cold air comes in, you can see what happens when we go through Thursday and Friday. It turns very cold. This increasing area of below average temperatures in Celsius, as much as 5 degrees below average in the darker blues, 5 to minus 6 or 7 Celsius. That's a significant departure. And there it is, right through the weekend and into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. Then you start to see temperatures finally moderating. And in terms of actual numbers, by the way, we can also show you that. So let me just let's get something current here. So this is actually for noon today, where readings are shown to be up on the model anyway in the 8 to 10 Celsius range. And then as we move to noon tomorrow, again, looks like 5 to 10. But here comes the cold air during Thursday, and you can see that bluish area, which would be temperatures below freezing, creeping southward. And actually during the day on Friday, that cold air creeps all the way south. So it looks like much of England and Ireland will have temperatures below freezing Friday into Saturday morning and Saturday afternoon. So very, very cold indeed for starting late Thursday and particularly Friday into Sunday. Midnight Sunday, we've got temperatures by the model being indicated of less than minus 5°C in southwestern England. So for those of you in the U.S., that would be the equivalent of low 20s and probably some pockets of upper teens as well. So that is exceptionally cold. So I want to do a little bit of U.S. weather too for my U.S. friends, but let me just jump on the chat board real quick before I do that and say hi to everyone. And there we go. So we got a small but excited crowd here. Good to see everybody. Any of you that are watching from the UK, make yourself known. It would be great. Raymond's here. He hasn't been on for a while. I haven't seen Paul Sack in a while either. By the way, you just saw Kovu go by. He was on at the beginning. She Gadget, you've got that icy blast coming, absolutely. Let's see. Do I think it will be colder in the south on what the other models are showing? Okay, I'm trying. Dark Knight, our side of the pond or their side? I just want to make sure I know where you are. I knew, Andrew, I knew somebody was going to bring up the Canadian. I did see it last night. It was ridiculous, okay? It really was ridiculous when I saw that, considering that the GFS did what it did on the overnight run, and then just, I didn't look at the new one yet, so we're going to look at that. So let's take a look at what the 6Z run did. The GFS model decided to throw a curveball, which it loves to do, and basically deal with the system on Friday and Friday night, Saturday here in the East by keeping it way out and not having no consequence whatsoever. And as usual, you've got the Canadian model that wants to make decided this time around. It went from doing absolutely nothing to producing a snowstorm up and down the coastal Northeast, and actually extended it fairly far inland. So let's take a look. Let's go to the eastern U.S. I'm going to be looking at the GFS now, the mid-cycle run of the GFS for the first time. I did happen to sneak a peek at one map for one time frame that kind of gave me a clue. So let's take a look together. So this is new to me. One of the reasons why it did what it did is because it's, squashing to some degree the system that's coming up from the south. And now, of course, we've got this thing that's kind of pivoted back. On this run, the GFS is pivoted back more toward the northwest, and you're back in this narrow stripe of snow. And then that goes out. And, of course, you've got the energy from the north that stays completely separate. That's what keeps this from being a bigger event, is the fact that the energy from the north is slower to come out. The energy from the south comes out faster. They're just not timed correctly. You need one of them. You need that southern feature to be slower and the northern feature to be faster, and where the energy from the north would catch the wave as it goes out, so that it would develop, closer to the coast with all this cold air around. But that is not the case. So you've got that northern feature that moves through on Sunday, a weak cold front that comes through on Tuesday with a wave that develops on that. And I'm thinking, I knew it was going to go back to developing now a low that starts off coastal North Carolina and runs northeast. Now this is going to be the catalyst to bring down probably the coldest of the cold air for the latter part of next week, later Wednesday, Thursday into Friday. So I think that part of the game remains in play. And then another little push of cold air going into the weekend of the 17th. Look, folks, I'm going to tell you right now, and I've said this many times already, I'm going to switch to the upper air because I want to see what the upper air did, and I also want to see what the European did. I've said this many times already, that you can wind up this whole pattern. You're going to have all this cold air. It could wind up being cold and dry. Don't be shocked if that's what the outcome is, that we just, things just don't line up the way you think they might. But here's that first system. You can see the positive tilt on the trough. The trough axis runs from about Chicago down to East Texas. It may or may not be a problem, but the southern part of that trough, you see how they're unfazed? You've got two distinct dents in the flow here. The trough that runs from eastern Michigan now, east of Chicago down to southern Indiana. And then you've got this trough. The southern reflection is running well ahead down into West Virginia, western North Carolina, western South Carolina. The two streams are separate, and they really don't phase up. The north just kind of takes over and then just kicks out to the east. It doesn't pick it up and lift it up northeastward. It just basically just kicks it out to the east-northeast. So that's the problem there. Then you're going to have this powerhouse upper air system that's going to dig, and you can see it there. This really digs down, but the GFS on this run it's there, but you've got some issues here as well. It's not on the prior runs. It was showing it to be a very deep, very sharp, intact trough. Now it's got a little bit more of a fractured look to it. That could be just one run. Let's look at the European on this. Be curious. I did not see. See, the European has a much deeper reflection here. It's a much more intact trough, north-south. So I'm going to guess that it has a slightly different look with its low. So let's pull up the surface. And we only have the 24-hour increments to look at, unfortunately, but that's just the way it is. So this is Tuesday. This is Monday night. So here's Tuesday night. So you've got one low sitting in eastern Maine and a long stretch of isobars going back down to eastern Virginia. So that's going to wind up with a very deep low. At this point, it has already run past up into Nova Scotia and southeastern Canada. And of course, we've got this very, very cold air mass. So there's your below normal temperatures for Wednesday and for Thursday, and then you get a little moderation as another weather front comes in for Friday and into the weekend. And this is the last frame because it only goes out 10 days, but you can see there's more cold air upstream, north and west. So one more model to look at. Why don't we look at the NAM and see what the NAM has to say with regards to this weather system coming in for Saturday. Brings it close at 84 hours. We start from the beginning. So, our front now is going out. By the way, the NAM, this cold air push goes pretty far south, and you can see that there's a lot of snow in southwestern Texas that winds up maybe a little bit of sleet might mix it in places just west of San Antonio, if that's right. And even shows some snow here when we go into Friday night into Saturday morning as low pressure develops in the Gulf. But here's your wave for Friday evening. See, one wave goes out weekly, and then here's the second wave that by Saturday afternoon you've got low pressure east of North Carolina. And to me, this would suggest that any snow would stay offshore. It's also a little bit slower in how it's doing things. So you get the idea, folks. This is it's a mess going forward. It always is, and these runs are not the most awe-inspiring things that you sometimes think they are, because they are so volatile and they go back and forth. And it could be a real frustration from a forecast standpoint. So let me just bring up my person. Now I'm going to kind of adjust the live stream schedule today a little bit with this morning live stream. I think what I'll do is push the evening live stream, and I'll do it if it's okay with you guys. I will do it tonight when I get back from work, which will be at 11:30 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll actually have the new GFS and the new NAM to work with. So if you guys are okay with that, I will do it at 11:30. Let's see. She Gadget, about cold air streamers. Pembrokeshire Dangler. Yeah, that's between Ireland and England and the Welsh coast. So you're going to freeze. It sure does look that way. You're going to be very, very cold up your way. And yes, I hope everybody's happy to see my cat. He's actually behind me. I think you guys can see him here. Let me just make sure. There he is. I usually don't let him walk on kitchen counters, just so you know. But it's been kind of with the diabetes stuff. I've been giving him a little bit of a freer hand to roll around, and he's got to get his shot in just a little bit. Javon Johnson, South Carolina, seeing any snow Friday night into Saturday morning. Where in South Carolina? Are you talking near Charleston, or are you talking inland? Because that's going to make a huge, that obviously makes a huge difference. And certainly when you look at the the models, the NAM at least, I think, has it, tries to make it cold enough. Let me bring that up here. I just have to have it in front of me. I mean, it does show, on the northern and western fringe of the precip, that you are going to see you may see some snow out of this, and then moving into North Carolina, the GFS a little less so. It has it very, very, very thin striped, but you know what? I'll give it the benefit of the doubt that there's enough cold air aloft to pull this off, that you will see. You could see a little snow out of this, or maybe a cheap thrill. But where in South Carolina is going to make a huge difference in the answer to that question. Let's see. You're in Hilton Head on the coast? No, I really don't think you will. Not there. Sebastian P is on Hilton Head. Oh, okay, yes. All right, you're in Columbia, Javon Johnson. Yeah, you know what? You might. It's not impossible. It's certainly not impossible. Look at the day runs when they come in. I'll look at I'll try to remember to take a look at some of the temperatures at the bottom of the atmosphere, going up to about 5,000 feet. I mean, certainly this air, the bottom part of the atmosphere is a little bit on the warm side up and down the East Coast, but relatively speaking, but the air just above the low levels is actually pretty cold. So that oftentimes compensates if you get enough intensity. So anyway, I hope those of you that have been watching from the UK and from Ireland, I hope that you've enjoyed this longer dedication to the weather up your way. I do actually look at Europe from day to day. We do spend time taking a look at Europe. Usually, it's not a detailed look, but when weather is going on. And I did receive a special request to do this from Jason SEO Smith, and I was more than happy to oblige. So I hope I lived up to expectations. So here's what we're going to do today, folks. We'll have the next live stream tonight. We'll do it at 11:30 Eastern time when I get home. We'll have the new model runs to look at, and we'll take it from there. So in the meantime, for today, we just got this weather front finally through here. The rains are done for the most part for my neck of the woods. We're going to start this process of turning colder over the next couple of days and get into this winter pattern that is going to be at times very, very dynamic. So it'll be exciting to see what the next run of models have to tell us. And I didn't show you the Canadian because you know what? Why bother? It's almost never right with this sort of stuff. All right. Have a great day, folks. So we'll talk to you late this evening. Again, 11:30 Eastern time, p.m.